Despite the huge trees around the building, the fresh morning light still streamed in for some reason. Because it was in the morning, the surrounding air was very clear. If there was a person who wanted to walk through the forest to relax, here would be a great place. However, only if you could get here. Ray had taken a step out of the building with Seth to check the state of the surroundings. According to Sephiroth's knowledge, the barrier should extend about 100 meters from the center of the building. Probably. Seth nodded to Ray's words. If we take even one step outside the barrier, it will already be a monster paradise. Are we prepared? The death sight had been put on his shoulder. It could be shifted to his right hand to be used at any time. Seth raised a cry that was full of fighting spirit. One person and one animal advanced while relying on one another. After walking for about 3 minutes, a thin film attached to the building came into view. So this is the barrier. Though it is nerve-wracking to go out, the other decision is to starve to death. Yes, the food that was supposed to last him 10 days had already been finished after this morning's breakfast. 10 days worth of food had been exhausted in 2 meals. Ray was wary of the surroundings while Seth was prepared to protect Ray at any time. Originally, Ray had wanted to keep several pieces of bread with him to eat in the forest. However, he was defeated by Seth's sad, sorrowful eyes because of hunger. The last pieces of bread were in Seth's stomach. Well, but you know, I'll need to find a job as soon as possible to earn money for future food expenses. Are there adventurers or something like that there? According to Sephiroth's knowledge, there seems to be an adventurer guild. However, there won't be a guild branch office if the town isn't big enough. In other words, in order to earn money for Seth's food, he had to leave the forest and go to a big city as soon as possible. If you think about Seth's meals, I wonder if we could defeat some monsters and eat the meat. Fortunately, Seth is a magic creature, so everything he eats is converted to magic power and doesn't enter the body. The worry of having to go to the toilet is unnecessary. However, in that case, the living expenses of Ray are brought up. There is the method of selling the nails, skin, and other materials that Seth doesn't eat at the corner stall. That said, the best method was still to leave the forest and find a town with an adventurer guild branch office and work as an active adventurer. Ray confirmed his determination again and with Seth, took one step outside the ward. As soon as they took one step out of the barrier, there were overwhelmingly dense signs of living creatures. Ray used to live in a country town in Tohoku. Of course, there were nearby mountains and river. Rabbits, squirrels, deer, monkeys, foxes, and tanukis. It was not unusual to see wild boars either. If you went to the heart of the mountains, you might find a bear at times. However, Ray was overwhelmed by the signs here in comparison. What to say? This is truly a different world. Plants such as trees and grass surrounded by periphery of the barrier. It was like people seeing the mountains around Ray's area for the first time. While sucking in the fresh morning air, he began to walk through the forest with Seth. As expected, after being left alone for several hundred years, the road that was there had disappeared. There was a suitable distance between the large trees which wasn't too hard to walk through. However, for Seth, who exceeded 2 meters in size, it felt narrow and he gave a deep growl. Seth lightly rubbed his beak against his wings. It seemed that he wanted to fly in the sky instead of being obstructed on the ground. Ray talked to persuade him while scratching his head. Calm down. Although I think I said it yesterday, there are also dragon species living in the forest. If you fly in the sky, they will consider you to be breakfast. Seth dejectedly dropped his shoulders at Ray's words. Though his body is big, His patience is still insufficient, as it was only the second day since his birth. They had left the barrier for about 30 minutes, with Ray wearing the shoes of Sleipnir, which increases his speed, and as Seth was a Griffon. They went through the forest at a considerable speed with good time. During this, Ray spotted a tree with what looked like a red fruit. He moved in front of the tree and stretched out his hands to take the fruit from there. "I wonder, Seth, do you think I can eat this?" he asked Seth as an apple-like fist-sized red fruit lay in his hands. However, Seth didn't understand and only tilted his head to the side. Ray stared at the red fruit with Seth. However, an idea came to mind and a smile floated to his face. This is a time to use Separa's knowledge. He brought out the information of the apple-like fruit in his hand from Separa's knowledge. Clara fruit. It was a kind of fruit in the forest. Its flesh is delicious and has a sweet sour taste. However, care must be taken if a Clara fruit is found, because it is too delicious. Many monsters and beasts like to eat it. As he read the description, Ray's face cramped. Dangerous. Seth, for the time being, let's leave here. The fruit is... Though Ray immediately started to leave the place, Seth was looking to the forest at his right and giving low growls. Too slow. Ah well, we can't help it. There's no other way. Quietly turn into food for Seth and me. Ray became calm as his mentally changed in an instant. He held out the dead sight after putting away the Clara fruit into the misty ring. Though the person himself did not notice at all, no excess fear or hesitation to the battle existed in Ray's mind. Now then, what will come out? I will be glad if it is a wild boar, or at least not a monster. It was a hope that he couldn't really hope for. As for what appeared, it was a bear that was around 2 meters tall from what he saw. However, with water covering its fur, it was probably a monster and not a wild animal. For a few seconds, Ray, Seth, and the bear stared at each other in silence. It was more or less 2 meters in size, but it felt larger than Seth as it was standing up. It had a discernibly strong build and had water all over its fur. In addition, it had 30 centimeters long, sharp claws extending from its paws. It had a sinister feel to it. Why didn't water drip down from the fur at the top of his head? Ray thought. It was the bear, tentative name, that broke the silence. While raising a roar that echoed in the surroundings, it dropped to all fours and attacked Ray and Seth. There's no choice. Seth, let's do it. Okay, Seth, okay, Seth seemed to say as he raised a sharp cry and moved forward to meet the water bear. Ray followed while holding the death sight. The water bear recognized that his prey had run towards it instead of running away. It bared its 10-centimeter long fangs while moving to swing his claws at Seth. Seth avoided the blow by jumping to the side. He kicked against the tree that he had jumped past and swung his sharp forefeet and the water bear in a triangular hop. With a conspicuous sound, Ray confirmed that the tree that Seth had used as a step had broken. He held the death sight while wryly smiling at Seth's physical strength. However, he held the sight with the handle facing outwards. After all, he could hardly swing a sight that boasted a length of 2 meters in this forest. Therefore, he planned to use the part of the handle of the sight as a spear. The water bear received a blow and was slashed by Seth's claws. While raising a growl of agony, it swung its claws down at Seth again. The attack was avoided by jumping back. The water bear, which missed its target, lost its balance and staggered. Ray aimed at the side of the water bear and stabbed out with the death sight. While making a dull thud, the handle of the death sight penetrated its flank, ignoring the water and fur that was covering the water bear. While frowning as he felt it go through the flesh with its powerful left arm, The water bear pulled out of that sight while swinging the claws of his right hand at Ray. The moment the handle was pulled out, the blood of the water bear ran out and fell to the surrounding grass. The water bear didn't mind it and continued to swing his sinister claws. The water bear roared in surprise and irritation that it was damaged by the small creature before it. The wound wasn't a small one. At the same time, it wasn't a fatal wound given the vitality of a monster. While observing the water bear, Ray could not hide his surprise at his own physical ability. After all, he had stabbed with the handle of the scythe. He didn't think that his blow had a degree of power to cut through the body of the water bear like a knife through butter. The physical ability of this body seems higher than expected. Thinking in his mind, he checked the state of the water bear. This time, Ray was surprised at the water bear. The flank of the water bear should have been pierced with the handle. However, it was generating at a visible rate. He began to understand the use of the water that covers it. To Ray's surprise, after water had flown into the wound for 10 seconds, the bleeding stopped. Even the wound itself disappeared. As expected of a monster. In other words, the only way is to deal heavy damage in a single blow without giving it time to recover or something like that. Turning his eyes to the dead sight for a moment, he suddenly realized, oops, I forgot the ability of the dead sight that increases its power if I give it magic power. As expected, it must be at the tension of the first battle. Tension? Thinking about it, he finally noticed his tension. Though he was tense, he wasn't like recruits and amateurs from novels who wouldn't be able to move their bodies due to stress. This is also a result of the fusion. While thinking about that, he gazed at the state of the water bear that seems to be at loss whether to attack Seth or Ray. Though the death sight was the highest offensive power at hand, it's difficult to swing as there is no room in the forest. While saying that, it is also a bad idea to use fire magic in the forest. While considering the possibilities in his head, Seth, the water bear, and Ray, one person and two animals, were in a stalemate, no one moving carelessly. If the bear attacked Seth, it would be stabbed by Ray. Reversely, if it attacked Ray, it would be slashed by Seth. As for Seth and Ray, there was no point in attacking the water bear as it would fully recover in about 10 seconds, like the blow that pierced its flank. In actual fact, when the water bear uses the water that covered it to regenerate, magic power was consumed. However, it was Ray's first battle and he didn't notice it. If he noticed, there would be a lot of other options. The water bear and Seth growled at each other, trying to intimidate the opponent. While watching the situation, Ray desperately worked in his head. What to do? Should I go for the sink or swim and supply magic power to the death sight? Perhaps with its physical ability, it should be able to cut through the bear and the trees around it at the same time. No, I should make that the last resort. What else is there? Should I use fire magic and be prepared for a fire? That wouldn't work. From the knowledge I drew about the forest, the possibility of a fire is no joke. No, wait, a fire? Fire magic? Death sight's handle. I got it. An idea came. In an instant, Ray called out to Seth, who was glaring at the water bear. Seth, break the stance of the water bear like just before. I'll do something afterwards if you can do that. Leave it to me. Seth gave a cry as it started to move around in a ring to focus the water bear's attention on himself. The water bear wasn't able to remain indifferent to the situation and gradually diverted its attention from Ray to Seth. How much time did it continue for? Although the confrontation felt long to Ray, it had only been a few minutes. The water bear wasn't able to put up with the stalemate and gave a loud roar. At the same time as the roar, the water on the water bear's fur came out. It changed into 3 water balls in front of his eyes. The next moment, the water balls shot towards Seth. Here it is. Seeing the state of the water bear and Seth, Ray judged that it was the turning point in the battle and grasped the handle of the dead sight while concentrating his mind and preparing to cast a spell at any time. 3 water balls shot from the water bear, tearing through the sky. Seth saw that and shortened the distance to the water bear, weaving between the trees. One of the water balls hit a tree Seth had used as a shield, gouging out the trunk of the tree. Seth instantly dived to the ground to evade a water ball that was going towards his head. The water ball passed over his head and hit the tree trunks behind him. From his state with his head on the ground, Seth used his body as a spring and rushed forward. The distance to the water bear was rapidly cut down. In this state, he attempted to land a blow on the water bear before he could be hit by the last water ball. It was clear to the water bear. Because of that, the water bear raised a roar of victory. However, changing its course in the air, the water ball attacked Seth from above. But just before the blow hit Seth, it abruptly exploded as if it hit something. The water bear didn't know what happened. Of course, it was natural. One of the bracelets Seth had put on was the bracelet of wind manipulation, which could disable all projectile and magic attacks. However, the water bear didn't know that there was a limitation and could only be used once every 10 hours. Because of that, Seth dived toward the chest of the water bear and slashed out with his right forefoot while raising a cry. Literally lifted off its feet, the water bear fell over. This was due to another bracelet Seth had equipped, the bracelet of Herculean strength, which increased his strength. Believing in Seth, Ray had watched the development of events. At the moment the water bear fell over, he started running towards the water bear while casting a spell. Fire, you're a snake, therefore burn my enemy as I desire. According to the incantation supplied with magic power, the world was rewritten. As a result, flames gathered around the magic body of the dead sight. As the incantation finished, the handle of the dead sight was stabbed into the back of the water bear that had fallen over. Dance, fire snake. The moment the spell was completed, a snake made of fire was shot out from the handle to the dead sight and went forward from the back to the head to burn the water bear from the inside. Raising a roar filled with fear and pain as its brains were burned, the water bear collapsed on the spot.